All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Rooted and Rising. I'm really excited for this episode. I am joined by my friend of, I want to say, over a decade, uh, at least, Dr. Nifemi Roberts. We've worked together in a number of projects, and I think she always brings heart and clarity to everything. So, Nifemi, I'm just very excited to have you on the podcast.
Thank you.
Welcome. Welcome.
I,
Do you want to introduce yourself?
sorry, I think you're the first person that has done that combination of Nifemi Roberts.
Really? Okay, period.
You were saying introduce myself?
Yes.
Okay, well, because I don't know how you edit this, but people might be saying Olubukola or Udele. But yeah, that's the official.
Yes.
Prior to marriage, I use all my names, so hence the Nifemi. And I also use my other name, Ayomide. So I'm the girl.
Yes. He has multiple names, guys. As a true Yoruba queen.
I'm the girl with multiple names who actually uses her names. And yeah, who am I? I am a child of God. I think I have to say that very, very immediately, for lack of a better term. And then, I've been in the public health profession now for, honestly, a long time. So 15 years now, at least. And so, yeah, been doing that. I'm recently married, so I'm now a wife. Of course, a daughter, a sister. And I like to think of myself as one of the things I think I value a lot about myself is a good friend. I was telling somebody, I was telling my sister actually yesterday that I wanted to, I was thinking about going to someone's mom's funeral. Interestingly enough, I've known this person again, like you, for maybe about a decade.
Oh, wow.
But I've never met him. And that was because of, when we used to do it back then on Twitter and
All the social media connections, but we don't actually meet them in person.
and we became friends, and we were in different countries. And then I think he's even back in Nigeria, but just in, again, different states. And, I considered it, honestly, if not because of, some other things.
Yeah.
But that's the kind of person that I think that I am. I potentially could have gotten on the plane or, driven, however, whatever mode of transportation it would have taken me to get there. And I think that's the one thing I think I value in myself. So yeah, that's right.
Wonderful. I mean, I think there's a lot of good virtues, but I think being a good friend is definitely top two, I would say, in life. So maybe let's start in the beginning, right? So can you tell us a little bit about your upbringing? Like, where did you grow up? What was your family like? And then, yeah, we can go from there.
Okay. I'm the first of 7 children.
A lot of kids.
A total of 7, and it's funny because we're very well paced. I think, especially my unit, which is from my mom. So my brother is 2 years after me. My next sister is 5 years, and then the next is 8 years. So that whole you're a big sister. I think for me has always been an interesting part of my life. So yeah, first child, first daughter. I have 4 girls, 2 my math, right? Yes.
Yeah.
4 girls, 2 boys behind me. And so yeah, I think that shaped me a lot, honestly. I was born in Ibadan, shout out to Ibadan. My first 2 years I lived in Ibadan, apparently. And then I moved to Lagos. I went to home science, shout out to home science.
Yes,
Graduated
home
from
science.
there. And I finished early. So let me even go back. Been to not many schools, but like I had gone, finished undergrad, I finished primary school, and I finished primary school. Primary 4. My parents said I was a genius. They thought I was a genius. And I think that
they thought you were a genius.
I think they did not allow my genius to grow. I think.
But look, I feel the same way. I really do.
I think if they had left me in school, I'd done primary 5 and primary 6, maybe gone to a better school than going all the way to their career. And the reason I had gone to their career because my dad was like, never, you're not going to QC.
So QC, for those listening, QC is Queen's College. It's like, I don't know what it's like now because, it's been a while, but it was kind of like the prestigious secondary school that you send your girl child to when they finish primary school. So it was on my list of schools. I didn't go there, but yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But my dad went to Government College Ibadan, and I think he just had peace with, the idea of what government college was supposed to be like, which QC was essentially also kind of government college. And so what, he had beef with them. And so he sent me to Federal Government Girls College of Korea. And I just want you to know that I was 8. I think I turned 9 that year.
Oh,
So
you were 8 in high school. Well, junior high school, but still.
yeah, junior high, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think I turned 9 that year. And yeah, it was tough. So the first 2 years was really, really tough. And so then, got sick enough that my parents like, okay, yeah, come back to Lagos. That's GS2, which I think is also interesting because I mean, I think it gives you a better, I was sick all the time, but it helps you reorient and it helps
Hmm.
like know what you're doing. And so, you feel like you know a little bit. But then I was also now then in a school where there were real geniuses. in
So the competition was stiff.
Yes, yes. And I think I never quite got over all of that stress. And my
Mm.
parents were also going through a divorce at this time. So it was just like
Oh,
a lot going on. And I say all of this to say that I had good friends, but I was just an average student in home science. And then I go to, and then I'm graduated. I graduated at 15, I think again, I was turning 16 that year. So my dad is like, and I always laugh at this story because my parents always had mentioned that we were going to school abroad. I just want you to know that they did not make any financial plans for said dream.
it's funny because another one of my guests was talking about how she said African because she's not Nigerian, but she's
Yeah,
Zambian. She said African
yeah,
parents always are like education, 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 but it's not like they brought out 100K and said, this is where you're going.
There's no financial plan for this. I didn't, honestly, it never occurred to me to do jam. It never occurred to me to do, what's that thing that the people, diploma, all of that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
diploma, yeah.
Never occurred to me. So, he's like, okay, you're going back to school. So then I go back to Ibadan. And Ibadan has always been the place we went to when other people were traveling to America and all of that for rich cousins and friends over there anyway. So it was nice, to go.
Yeah.
Also to kind of be like on the outside because this is one place you could have a bath outside. Ibadan was interesting and I love that I have that whole family there. But anyways, went back to Vail
Hmm.
College. And now I feel like a genius. I mean, I could not. I feel like okay, I know what I'm doing. I'm good at school and all of that. And but again, my mom is at this point. She's like, "What are you doing? You're already graduated. Go do your SATs and all of that." So I came back. Not we. I came back to Lagos and then did Met. And Met is again one of those places where I met a lot of people. I think you and I know together as well. But it was just again a lesson that a lot of people went to get their A levels, get their SATs and stuff. So that was really good actually for me. Again, I have so many people that I know from there and I've kind of kept in touch with because I don't think I remember anybody from primary school. I know
Yeah.
two people because they were kind of family from FGC career. Um, and I have my group chat with my home science buddies, and I do have a few of them, mostly the guys, but it didn't feel like family, the kind of
In
like
that sense.
yeah, kind of
Yeah.
like the way that I have with Bill College, like the one in Ibadan. Maybe it was a short time, maybe it was the new girl, but I think for me that was when friendship started to also kind of
At those
yes,
situations.
and I think Vail College also for me was because now nobody knew me, nobody knew my story, nobody knew about my dad, nobody knew all of that.
Yeah, sorry. I'm just gonna jump in here because what you're just saying now is giving me something to ask. Because
Mhm,
I know you mentioned your parents were going through a divorce or a separation
mhm,
at that time. As someone that also comes from a home where my parents weren't together, actually for me it was different. Like I never grew up in a house with my dad
mhm,
there. So what was that like in Nigeria? Because I always think about because I know back then things are probably changing now where it's not
mhm.
stigmatized. But what was that like for you growing up in that kind of environment where you're feeling, all of these emotions dealing with that, but then also having to, obviously, you're growing up as the first child, eldest daughter, and all that.
I don't know. I don't really think I had emotions.
Oh, okay.
I am always very curious if other people saw me a different way, but I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that I grew up into my emotions. I wasn't always even in general an emotional child, I don't think.
Interesting.
I think
Yeah.
I was born a firstborn, if that makes sense. Like I've always been a little bit more practical and a little bit more logical. For me, it was always like as long as you're doing the things that you needed to do, and I'm sure it exhibited itself in some ways. Honestly, I cannot recall it. And my best friend always says that I have what she calls it something amnesia, selective amnesia.
Selective amnesia, yeah.
And so it's very possible that,
That part of your life is just not
is totally
something.
gone.
Yeah.
But I like to think that it's blocked enough where I'm also not traumatized, if you get what I mean. Like, I'm a
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
healthy individual. And I think that a lot of it was just one, I didn't, in school, I didn't really have anybody stress me about it. I don't remember. I think I had
Mhm.
people that were sympathetic about it. Not even necessarily because they knew anything. It was more, there's what stands out to me was that there was a time that we were financially not good, and so we
Yeah,
school fees. And so that was the most traumatic thing that I remember about that. And just the fact that I hadn't been around for a while and I had to come back to school again and catch up again, that kind of
I
thing.
see.
That was it for me for at least for home science, which is why I say I think home science for me was like it was very, very blocked. But I don't remember sitting down and having a lot of conversations around.
About that. Okay. Okay. And
I dealt with that more as I went to college. And I see
college.
that, I mean, I'll talk about college, but I think my first degree was the best choice that I could have done in my
Hmm.
life. But I'll get there. Sorry, was I? Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's it. Go ahead.
let's talk about maybe the eldest daughter thing, right?
Hmm.
So I think being the eldest, you're often kind of like the blueprint, right?
Yeah.
So you've talked about how your dad wanted you to go to a particular school and
Hmm.
all of those things, and you have all these siblings as well. So how did your role as the eldest daughter kind of show up in the house, even in your choice of a career, and even
Yeah.
like your relationships? Like what kind of expectations did it place on you, and how do you think that's kind of shaped you?
Yeah. For the longest time, it was a big part of my life, and it was something that I thought I was doing without even anybody pushing me to do it. Honestly,
Hmm.
my sister and I were still having this conversation today, a couple of days ago, and she was like, "Oh no, you probably did some things and you didn't realize it was expectations." And I'm like, I'm pretty sure I did it because I loved you guys.
Yeah.
But maybe there's some unconscious things there. But it shaped me. I won't lie. I mean, I was, obviously the first. So you're there trying to figure out how you can take care of your siblings. And I mentioned the age gap, right?
Yeah.
Taking care of your siblings, how you're making sure they're protected from all of the drama that is happening, what they should know, what they shouldn't know, what information they should have and they should not have. So I
Mhm.
think, did that very well. I sometimes feel like with the baby sister, maybe I dropped the ball because I thought, oh man, we've already kind of set everything. So you're gonna be fine. And I like we're fine now. So
And
you're
then
gonna
she's like, you're like figuring out yourself because at this point,
no, I don't even think it was figuring out yourself. I just thought, oh, but you've already seen it, right? So you're
I see. So you should be
yeah.
fine. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
don't need anything extra, right?
Yeah.
And then I think, even the fact that it was a boy after me and, maybe not girls. I think there's a little bit of like, sometimes I do feel like I still didn't even do enough. It chested it up.
Mm.
But I think for me, it was just like you said, so now I've finished school, finished math. I've gotten into, school in Michigan. And so
Hmm.
now I'm away from them. And so I think for me, that was a little hard. I remember I still have my journals. Like that was hard for me, making sure they were okay, making sure they were not dealing with trauma and all the
Yeah.
decisions my parents were making. Well,
Yeah.
particularly my father. My mom was easy, but and not being affected by those decisions that he was making.
Hmm.
I remember back then communication was not like it is today when I can just get on WhatsApp. I had to have money to be able to
Buy like a phone card and all
exactly,
things. Yeah.
exactly. We'll do Skype and we're dealing with internet issues, not the way we're dealing with it now, and what was the other one? Was this, yeah, it was Skype and yeah, and then Facebook came around and then Facebook helped a little bit. So that was helpful. But it was a lot, I would say, because I think for me, that is probably the hardest, the way I think about it, that was the hardest part for me
Hmm.
as the first child. But then my brother came. And for the first 4 years in America, I didn't travel, I didn't see them.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That was especially very hard for me. But then, just being able to now understand the system enough and be able to say, do this, do that. So I always say the story of my brother wasn't doing so well in school when he had come. He was in New York, the Delphi
Yeah.
University. And he wasn't doing so well. And I'm like, boy, what are you doing? You're coming to Michigan. And my brother ended up in the valedictorian.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Like you really put your big sister hat on in that moment.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah. And so for me, I think that was one of the things I'm like, yeah, no, we don't do that here. We don't play that here. And then of course it helped because by the time that happened, by the time my baby sister came, she could just plug into Michigan.
Yeah.
And it was a lot easier. It was only my middle sister actually, or yeah, third one, where it's funny because again, we all have this thing of I'm going to medical school. My brother was going to be an engineer, my sister was going to be a lawyer, and then
The
my
youngest.
sister could do whatever the hell she wanted.
That's nice.
So we couldn't really see it, right? And this
Yeah.
was like, I remember having this conversation with them about that, this whole plan or whatever. Or maybe it was our parents having the conversation with us and it kind of stuck. But then I
Probably.
remember that by the time my sister, the third one, was then now having to figure out school, it's like, oh, no, you can't do law in America. It's long, it's expensive, it's
Mhm.
plus, we all thought we were going back to Nigeria. And I'm
So
proud to
was
say
that the
that I
plan?
did.
Like you were going to finish education and then move back
That
to
was always the plan. It was something I
Really?
think my dad instilled in us very early. So we never really thought of ourselves as Americans and coming to Japan. I mean, obviously Japan was not even a thing back
It
then.
wasn't a thing then, yeah. People actually
So
back then people would come to school and then go back to Nigeria.
and then go back, right? So
Yeah.
my brother, I think maybe 2 years after came back. Sister immediately came back. I think my school just took longer, so I didn't come back immediately. But my sister then was the only one that finally went that had to do school in Nigeria because we thought, well, except you're going to school in the UK, there's no
Mm.
point. And we'd had cousins who kind of had done some parts in Nigeria and then done some parts in the UK. So we kind of thought this is a template that you could work with and
Yeah.
everything. Interestingly enough, by the time she finished Unilag and was trying UK did not work out, and it was US that worked out,
So
and
she
now
ended up coming here anyway.
she's in the
Interesting.
US. So it's a very interesting thing, like how we plan and God
Yeah,
uses
God disposes, exactly. And what was your undergrad in?
Okay, yeah. So I was saying that my undergrad was in psychology,
Oh,
and I thank God
similar,
everything for
yes.
it because I really do think that as I was taking some of those courses, I was dealing with all of this, what my role was as a firstborn, then to deal with trauma, what adolescent psychology was, and what I was facing and dealing with, what child
Yeah.
psychology was. So, and I think it helped me even with my conversations with my parents, helped me with my conversations with my siblings. I started to be able to say, okay, I understand where that's coming from. But
Hmm.
like I was, it's funny because it's something my husband does because he always says, well, it took him 10 years to do the one psychology degree. So he's very, my psychology degree. I'm like, babe, you know, you're not a psychiatrist.
That's so funny because my undergrad was also in psychology. It's like, and I know that there's conversations I'll have with people, or like I remember my mom will always be like, "Oh, it's your psychology degree that is making
Yeah,
you know how to
yeah,
navigate this and that." But
yeah,
sometimes
yeah,
my partner would be like, "Oh yeah, the same thing." He'd be like, "Oh, you
yeah,
have to come again with this your psychology or
yeah.
therapy." I'm like, "Okay, but it's helping."
It's very, very over the years as I talk to people, and I can't remember exactly when I met you. I don't know if it was you were going into your master's or your
I think I was going into my master's.
yeah.
Yeah.
Sure, sure. Because over the years, as I talk to people, I would always tell them get a psychology degree, or at the very least, if that seemed to because your parents were like, "What the hell?" kind of first degree, maybe go into public health. But it really, 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 really helped. It
Yeah.
let me be softer.
Mm.
It let me not, I wasn't fighting about everything. I mean, I'll fight. Don't get me wrong. You still, I mean, now you're fighting with what you know and what you feel.
Yeah.
But I do think it was a very, very helpful thing for me. I will be very honest. But yeah, I did that in Michigan. Masters I did in Ohio, University of Toledo, Ohio, and then I did in public health epidemiology, and then yeah, I work as for my PhD.
So what drew you into the field of public health from psychology? Like what was kind of the defining moment there?
So I actually always wanted to do it. I
Okay.
had read Ben Carson's book. I forget which one, but and all those
What's the
initial
name of that book again? Yeah, 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 I know it.
the first two or three that were really good. And I
Mhm.
read all of them. My mom had made me read all of them. And I was going to do exactly what he did. So I was going to go to University of Michigan, which I did for undergrad. And I
Mhm.
was going to become a
Kids.
doctor at Johns Hopkins. And then I was going to obviously get a public health degree in addition to that.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, you know how we're talking about genius? I mean, I did very well in America, thank God. Like I really, like I said, I think after home science, I started to know that okay, you know what you're doing. But medical school was now one expensive. I was an immigrant, and like I failed organic chemistry enough to be like, you know what, maybe this isn't me.
Show you.
And I think for me, I think the other thing was I've always been, and again, maybe just naturally, like for lack of a better term, something that God gave me, was I always thought about impact as not just one individual. Or maybe this was me just trying to now like justify it. But in
Justify,
my head, I was like,
rationalize your decision.
exactly, with public health, I get to work with the whole country or the whole
Yeah.
state or the whole
Yeah.
a lot of people. The numbers were good as far as impact goes versus a medical doctor where it's
Yeah.
just the one person at a time. So I think it eventually for me it was an easier decision. I like reading anyways. So it was an easy decision. Like I prefer reading to um experiment. No, that's not the word.
Like the practical.
Yeah. So for me, I just was like, okay, you know what? This is something I can do. I like the idea that I could do it anywhere. Part of why I'd gone to school, let me be very honest, was I wanted to be the Minister of Health in Nigeria. That was always the plan.
So many of us that were like, the minister long. Possible. It's not, well,
So for me,
the
it was
only thing is, have you done NY? Ah, okay.
so that's why it's not going to happen. But it was for me the plan. And so I could again also rationalize it and justify it because I was like, okay, the only thing is you're going to go get a PhD. And so I
Right.
knew that I was going to get that PhD on time, and that was helpful.
Okay. So your education is spanning what, like 12 years, right? Because from bachelor's, is that longer?
Oh, yeah.
Wow.
Until I graduated, I felt like I was in school for all my life. I mean, I started school at 2 years old. So for me, I felt like I was in school for 30 something years. But anyways, undergrad I did in 3 years, actually. My master's I also did in 3 years.
Your
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Between the breaks, so whatever, maybe 4.5 years,
Fine.
because I started school January 2004. No,
Mm.
4 years. I was done sometime in 2008 with my undergrad.
Okay. Okay.
And then I didn't actually start my I didn't start my oh no. I took a break. I started January 2004 and I finished April 2008. I took a break. I didn't start until 2010 with my master's and finished in 2011. And then took a break and started January 2012 with my PhD. So yeah.
So the question now I have is really like around why did you choose to continue on with the PhD? And is what you're doing now in terms of work, and I don't want to spend too much time talking about work, but what you're doing with work, does it relate to what you like your PhD topic or research or anything?
Yeah. Like I said, partly because I wanted to go back to Nigeria and be the Minister of Health, and I just thought as a female and as a young female,
Nigerians love that doctor something.
They love it. Why not give it to them? I can do it.
Yeah.
Practically also, let's be honest, I was an immigrant. I was trying to get my papers. So that was one way too. And then I think for me, like I said, because it had always been something that I said I was going to do, I feel like I'm not as good to myself anymore as I used to. But I'm one of those people who, if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. It's very hard for me to go back on my word. So even when there were times, I mean, as you know, that PhD journey was long and horrifying in many ways. I said, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it. So,
Yeah.
and so I did it. And yeah, so I think less the education, more of the practical work things that I've been doing for a long time. So I've worked, I always say that I'd worked in maybe about 20 jobs in America.
Okay.
And typically almost always, no, actually, yeah, apart from Starbucks, at some point in school and like writing for the school paper or something like that.
Variety.
Yeah, everything I've done though has been health related. Yeah, always health related. Started from home care or home health,
Home health.
people with disabilities as well, and then older people. And then from there, I've worked with on cancer, organizations or with cancer organizations, done some cancer research, I've done autism, I've done gambling, cardiovascular health, which is kind of related to what I've done with my PhD, and where I've kind of been over the past few years, really just CBDs and those kind of things. I've kind of always been interested in health. So I think I've always known that about myself, that I've been interested in health in one way or the other. And so I try not to take anything nowadays that is not, I'll do some things on the side. I like to work. I know that my purpose in life ideally is related to health, and so not necessarily health in that you must be physically fine, but it's
Mhm.
better if you're physically fine, but just wellness, wholeness, that kind of thing. Like I just think people should be healthy in mind, body, soul, and spirit. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow. I love that. And yes, you obviously have a variety of experience and that's really rooted in health, but you mentioned something on the sides. I think
Yes.
we can also talk about the fact that you also host your own podcast,
Yes.
Without People, which I've been a guest on and I really enjoyed being a guest on. We're going to talk about that episode in a bit. What inspired you to start the podcast and how do you think storytelling has shaped your voice?
Yeah, thank you. That's a good question. I used to write. I used to be a blogger.
I remember.
Writing is has always been a part of me, and so storytelling in that sense has always been a part of me.
Mhm.
And when I first of all started, it was really just talking about myself or talking about stories I saw. Like I'm thinking about all the things that's happening in the country right now. And I jumped on it and I had written. And it's funny because I've been trying to write several things on Instagram, and I have a 5 minute limit on my Instagram, so I don't spend too much
Mhm.
time. And so
Mhm.
it keeps cutting me out every time I'm like writing a whole episode. I'm like, you know what? Maybe I'm not supposed to say anything. That's fine.
Mhm. Mhm.
I think the blogging, I had kind of once PhD picked up, I kind of stopped writing as much. And I was also looking for money, honestly. So I and back then, right, I think I remember the fact that Linda Ikeji and I were mates, right?
Oh,
And she
yeah.
one other girl, and I'm forgetting her name right now.
Is it Stella Dimokoko or something? So these are like the popular Nigerian bloggers. It was like
No,
Linda
no,
KG.
no, she was always in the States or somewhere
Oh, okay, okay. Hmm.
American. But she had been talking about writing a book, and in fact, it inspired me, and I started to write a story on my blog. But I
Hmm.
say that to say that they were the only people that I saw thinking of this as money. So it's interesting because I'm like, God, that could have been your side gig. You could have been an influencer.
It's true. It takes a lot of work though, and you really have to be up to date with like what's happening in the world. Yeah.
And not necessarily even because, I mean, my stories were not even necessarily, about what was happening in the world,
Hmm.
but I'm just saying,
Hmm.
like, I kept at being a
Boy.
storyteller in
Yeah.
that way. I could have been making some money. It just, you were going to school and you were an international student, so you're trying to figure out. Anyways, I say all of that to say that I think when in 2023,
Hmm.
54 Gene, let's not talk about work, but 54 Gene is the company that I used to work with, was
Uh-huh.
starting to falter. And I'm like,
Hmm.
you need somewhere to start to tell stories. But then I was a little self-conscious. I didn't want to talk about myself. Like, it's funny. You probably know even some of these things, even if you don't know it all together. I feel like I do share a little bit about myself enough that people can piece all
They
of this stuff
piece
together.
together a picture. Yeah.
But I'm like, I don't know. And I don't think people want to hear me. And I am self-conscious in a way
Hmm.
about this kind of thing, this kind of like, and it's something I think I've always struggled with faith versus, branding. Because everybody
Hmm.
tells you nowadays,
Branding is in
everybody
now.
should, yeah,
Everyone should have like their own personal brand.
exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody should have a personal brand. And I've just struggled with that.
Yeah.
So I just then said, you know what? I always like people's stories. I like to listen. I'm the girl who listens to people on the plane and look
Yeah.
carried away. And I'm like, yeah,
Yeah.
sure. And I ask you questions and stuff. So I think, yeah, I just thought, you know what? That's fine. I want to talk to people. I want to hear their stories. And I really do think that stories are so important because for me, where it stood out the most, when I was going through the PhD, I had the one time when I was like, this was it. Now, I'd already had the one time when I thought, you know what, I'm going to kill myself, right?
Ah,
We'd already gone past that. So now it's like, okay,
wow.
you're not kidding yourself. You're not going to die. You're all right. But this is hard. And I
Hmm.
wrote an article on LinkedIn. And again, tons of people that I
Remember.
have now
Yeah.
met in real life, or I haven't met in real life. I mean, almost 10,000. I mean, I went
Oh, wow.
viral. Whatever viral was at the
Yeah.
time for writing this very honest thing about my story.
Mhm.
And people prayed for me. People kept up with me and wanted to, find out the results and, how you doing. People sent you resources and friends and,
Oh,
anybody
wow.
that they thought could help. And I just thought, and then obviously there were all the other people who tell you their own stories as well. This happened to me, this happened to me, this happened to me. And you just realize that a lot of people just don't talk. And I just don't
They
know why.
don't. They
But if
don't.
you talked, if we didn't gatekeep, if
Yeah.
we get our experiences, maybe less people will want to commit suicide. Maybe
Yeah.
people would know who they
That you're not alone in this
are.
journey that you're going through.
Exactly. Exactly. So I call it something, and I can't remember because I did this 3 years ago, something about the tapestry of life, and we're all threaded in. And again, I use my story a lot because of the amount of people I'm connected with that, I
Mm.
can meet somebody today and they're like, oh, I know your mother.
I know this person. It's always like the first, second degree, third degree connections. Yeah.
It doesn't skip. It doesn't
Yeah.
like I don't like it doesn't skip. For me, it's like every single time. There's never been a time that it hasn't happened
Mm.
randomly. I can be anywhere in the world. And I think that's why I am now even less self-conscious, for lack of a better term. I'm
Mm.
more willing to share my story. And I want
Yeah.
more people to share their stories because opinions do matter. They're not
Yeah.
necessarily your end all, but they do matter. And it
Yeah.
gives people a different perspective. Sometimes I look at comments, right, on a post, and maybe I've agreed with the actual post. And then I look at the comments and I'm like,
I didn't think about that. Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
sense. I
Yeah.
didn't think about that. That's a better perspective. That's a wholesome perspective. And so
Mhm.
yeah.
That's so interesting. And I actually didn't know. I mean, I remember reading that article that you wrote. And I remember thinking like, wow, she's really going through it. That's why I ain't doing a PhD. But to be honest, I think that challenge or that lesson that you faced obviously has kind of shaped who you are and shaped this like passion for storytelling. So I think that's so important. And I'm actually like really sorry that you went through that phase of life. That's tough.
Yeah.
Like, that's
Yeah.
tough to hear. I'm glad that you got out of that at that time. So,
Thank
yeah,
you.
thank you for sharing that. Let's shift to happier topics like love and partnership.
So
So, you mentioned that you're recently married, and yes, period, girl. So, I wanted to maybe just I obviously I know this story, but I remember when you had your husband now on your podcast. I remember listening to the episode when I assume you guys were not even like anything at that point. And I remember listening to the episode, and I remember thinking, "Which was this pack? What is this? What's happening in this episode? There's something going on in this
you
episode."
and everybody else.
And so, yeah. So tell us, how did you meet your husband, and maybe eventually, like, what has you've been married for about a year, right?
I know it's a year in November.
So
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
far, what has marriage taught you about yourself and about
Mm.
love? Yeah.
Thank you. Okay. It's well, let me not say it's funny, but I met my husband because he had put up a post on his what's that thing? Threads that
Good.
said
Okay.
this was the first app he was on where he was single. And
Hmm.
if you know my husband, you know it's true because my
Yeah.
husband is a lover boy.
Yeah.
You know who was dating
Yeah.
when they were fighting, when they broke up.
That is hilarious.
But apparently, I had not been paying attention, or
Mhm.
he wasn't coming up on my feed because one, I'd left Twitter. And so he wasn't coming up on my feed a lot. And I remember there was a friend of mine who kept asking me about him, asking me about him. And I'm like, I don't know him. Like, I don't know him, right? Like, fine. I know a lot of people that know him. And so, like I said, my whole connection thing, one of his cousins was a neighbor to my own family friend. We call him cousin, but my own family friend that I used to go to in Ibadan. So we grew up together. So he knows
So
me.
you already had those like connections from there.
Family, like, no, but the thing is, I hadn't met him. Like, we don't know that we've actually met in
Okay.
person
Okay.
before we met after recording that episode. Like I said, I knew his cousin. His uncle, technically, they're just a few years apart, but still his uncle
Mhm.
was my high school father in home science. So is his aunt, I guess, as well. She wasn't my high school mother or anything, but she was in the same home science. So, and I grew up with her. We used to go see Korea Club together and we'll see at the Korea
Mhm.
Club and that kind of thing. So it's like, I'm pretty sure there are pictures of us, whether at the Korea Club, whether
Or something like that. And just to give the audience some idea, like, so in Nigeria, and I don't know, it might be a British thing too. In high school, you have like school fathers and school mothers. So if you're in like a lower grade, you typically have someone that's in grades above you that like kind of looks out for you in school. So they
right.
call it school father, school mother. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
right. And so, like I said, and even the cousin, and they're very big, but they're also very like connected. Like they stay in touch. Like they used to have a annual go to Ibadan, what's it called?
Yeah.
Family time and everything. So it's like, is it possible that I never actually met this person? But anyways, so we have, and obviously tons and tons and tons of friends together
In
and all of
common,
that
yeah.
stuff. It's interesting that we had never met until we met. But then, like I said, maybe because my friend had been, trained about him and wanting me to get information about him. And I'm like, it's not really my problem. Never really, I wasn't seeing him again on
Yeah.
Instagram. So then I see him randomly on Threads and I see this post and I'm like, you know what? I do a podcast. I would really love to talk to you about it.
Yeah.
Especially because my husband is a lot more open than I am. And I just thought it was interesting that he was publicly talking about what is now a divorce. And you don't hear a lot of Nigerian men talk about this. I don't think my father even on my podcast episode, my father didn't talk about it like that.
I remember I watched that episode.
He's like, yeah, 20 years, maybe even more, and he still won't talk.
Yeah.
That kind of things. I definitely wanted to reach out. So he's like, oh, take my number, let's talk.
Okay.
He didn't respond. And then, or maybe he said he will talk to me later, something like that. I think I sent 1 or 2 more messages, and then I'm like, you know what? And this was always my thing. If you're not meant to be on my podcast, you don't have to be. So that was it. So I let it go. And then a couple months later, he goes, let's do this. And at this point, interestingly enough, I'm praying. Normally, I don't pray. I didn't pray about marriage. It was not just my thing. But sometimes you're like, but God says you should pray. Like,
yeah, why not?
Aren't you disobeying God in this way? So I'm in this season where I'm kind of praying about it and talking about it. And I had randomly thought, this could be someone, again, not him per se, but that kind of person, right? And I thought, but I always said I didn't want somebody who was divorced. So how does
And that's what I was gonna say. I feel like the last time you and I hung out, this was in Maryland, you were still single at the time.
Yes.
And you were talking about like dating and like all the stuff, and you kept saying you would say you were actually very clear. You were like, you feel like the next person you're with is gonna be quick and that's it.
Yes.
I remember you saying you didn't want anyone that had been married before, and I think you didn't want anyone with children either.
Yes. So particularly, I didn't want anyone who was married with children.
Yes.
Exactly. So I didn't necessarily want anyone who is married, but if I was going to do it, I just could not do anyone who was married with children. And I think that is, if any trauma has remained from being a child of a divorcee and now then remarry, I just thought that can't be me. And it's funny because everybody would then say something like, but that can be you and you can be different. And I'm like, yes, I sure can. And I think I'm wholesome enough to be different, but I don't want it.
But you don't want to intentionally get into that situation.
Exactly. And I don't wish death on anybody. So I'm like, if the person is dead, like I just did not want it. So for me, it was a struggle. But and here's the thing. When I thought about Demilade, and I think this was around the time, like I said, he had already called me. So we'd had that initial conversation I usually would do with someone to say, oh, this is what the podcast is about.
Right.
And so I'm like I said, in that playing season. So when I'm not thinking of who do I want, he didn't seem like it was off, because for me, it was not even about him as a person. I did not know him as a person, but I knew his family and I knew enough of his family. And I knew enough of his family background. Again, I didn't know his family unit, but his family in general. And I like the person that he had always, at least from the little that I've seen,
himself to be.
Again, and this is why sometimes you also have to balance things, right? Because yes, if anybody had seen him, they would have thought, oh, well, this party guy is always at parties. But he also, he seemed to have, important discourse. He would talk about politics and talk about.
I remember he did a lot of things during that whole NSARS.
Exactly.
You used to see a lot of pictures and posts and things like that.
Exactly. So the little I had seen of him, the little I knew of his family, and the little I knew of the people around him that I knew, with the idea that he had portrayed. So I didn't say, God, give me a Demilade. I just said, okay, I took some things that he had portrayed and other things that I knew for a fact that I wanted. But I remember writing it particularly, I don't want somebody that is divorced. Anyways, long story short, we have this podcast episode. Like you said, everybody else felt this fire. And I don't know that I felt as far, but I liked the conversation, right? And then he had reached out to say he wanted to start his own podcast. Could we talk? So we
Yeah.
kept talking, and you know me, I'll travel for anything. So he's like, "Oh, we have to do this in person." And I'm like, "Bet, I'll come to Nigeria." I come to Nigeria all the time, anyways. And then I came to Nigeria, and he says it was my thighs because I wore shorts.
Period.
Intention, but
That's
honestly, I
so
think,
no, it's
but
the end. The end justifies the means, I guess.
but I think for me, interestingly enough, it was also very simple. I go to his place, which is where we're going to meet to have
Mm,
this conversation with a bunch of other people. And he had come out and he's like, "Oh, by his car." And I'm like, "What car?" And his car was a Toyota Corolla.
okay.
Hmm. Okay. So of all, like I said, I knew some things and things. The one thing I thought was a negative was that he was, I'm not saying pompous, but like he talked so much about his background and he's lived in Ikoyi and he's lived in
Yeah.
London and he's this and that, very cultured. And I'm like, yeah, this is where I'm going to get you, because in my mind he was going to have one of those
You're
big
expecting to have
cars.
like a BMW, an Audi,
And
yeah.
then just that arrogance was like going to be clear. And I'm like,
Yeah.
wait, you drive a Toyota Corolla? Like it was very, very interesting, but it was funny for me. And I think that immediately brought my defenses down. I
Mhm.
went into that conversation, obviously just talking about podcasts and all of that. But I
Yeah.
think I left that, by the way, I was only in Nigeria for 2 weeks. I left Nigeria knowing I was getting married to this guy. But I left that conversation. I entered all the conversations, I think, from that day forward, knowing that, okay, this could be the person. And
Really?
yeah.
So how long was your courtship then from like when you guys became quote unquote friends to
Yeah. Oh, was it? I mean, okay. So let me say, we did the podcast episode. I think we recorded in October of
Mhm.
2020. So it came out in November, and we didn't talk from October to November. Once we did it, we didn't talk.
Yeah.
So it was after it came out that he's now like sending me like things people were saying to him and stuff like that. So anyways, let's move to November. And so then from November to February, we're
Mm-hmm.
talking only about the podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Right? 2 weeks later, I'm pretty sure I'm engaged at this point. I just needed to,
Wow.
yeah, like I said, I left Nigeria knowing that we were getting married.
Oh, so did you guys spend an extended amount of time together while you were in Nigeria? Like one
At
of
that
those
point,
things where you were hanging out every day. It was like,
it wasn't
yeah.
every day because of talking. It was every day because of the podcast.
I
As
see.
soon as we finished the podcast, he says, because he says he felt like he knew that he couldn't disappoint. Like, this is why I come, from the States, and so he needed to do that. And once we were done, and honestly, at this point, I think we had 5 days before I left the country. Yes. And so we had one of those conversations. Have you seen that thing? I think it's from one of the Frasier episodes where the guy and the girl are going back and forth about, okay, do you want a baby, 2 kids, then
Mm-hmm.
one kid, and then where are we gonna live, countryside or
Yeah. Yeah.
that thing that happens where it's like we're 30 plus people. What we do? Where we go?
Yeah. Like we're not wasting any time. Let's get to the nitty gritty. Yeah.
What do you want? What can you take? What can't you take? What are you willing to drop? What are you not willing to drop? Where we staying? What we doing? We had that one of those conversations.
Okay.
And yeah, and that was it.
Wow. Wow. So
Yeah,
it sounds like a very brief, short amount of time for you.
it was very, very
You
good.
guys kind of just knew, look, this is it. Let's
Yeah.
get to it. So what was that? I guess what was that like? Like, were you long distance, I guess, at that point? So what was that like navigating that stage of your relationship while
Yeah.
pursuing like your own personal and professional goals?
Yeah. I mean, I think work was steady at this point. I got in another job at that point. So work was steady. Work was remote for me anyway, so that was
Yeah.
fine. And then, like I said, so this was February, April, we had visited each other. So at the time, the plan was now then we won't go 2 months without seeing each other. So that was February, so end of February, saw him in April again. So I'm in June, and by June we were doing our introduction.
Yeah.
And then October, went back to Nigeria again, and then we got married in November. So I mean, see, I don't know if I would recommend this to everybody.
I mean,
I think at 38, I recommend it, because again, at this point we were also not trying. We had promised we weren't going to have sex. So
oh,
at
I
that point, it was like you got to move.
so it was kind of so you guys were in like you guys chose not to chose to be celibate before
Yes,
okay.
exactly. For me, it was like, what are you waiting for? And you might as well now. Again, with all of that said, I say I don't want to say tongue in cheek, but I say it very cautiously. You have to know the things that you want, right?
Mm.
For me, his family was very, very important. His family took me in immediately. I always tell people that I would never forget his brother-in-law saying to me, I don't know who you are, but I like you. And and this was over the phone. And then when I met him in person, he sat us down and had a whole conversation with us about, do this, do that. What is it? Like he asked
Yeah.
those kind of questions. He asked the kind of questions that showed he cared, but showed,
Mm.
there was even something, I can't remember what it was, but he was like, I can see this being trouble for both of you, but I'm sure
Hmm.
that
Okay.
I'm like, that is not we talked about it, right? We immediately started counseling immediately.
I was gonna ask, so did you guys do premarital counseling? Yeah.
One
Okay.
of the things that I always tell people, I don't hide my relationships. Like a lot of people are like, they want to wait and they want to unveil and maybe they tell only private people.
Yeah.
One of the reasons I don't was, again, I think it's something I kind of got from even just my dad.
Yeah.
He knew a lot of people. And
Yeah.
I don't want a situation where somebody that has the information that I need.
They don't know. So like if you're able to put it out, that's true. That's a good point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so,
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there were not a lot of people that knew maybe until the introduction. But
Hmm.
every time somebody would then text me and be like, oh, you got a really great guy. I'm like, okay, you know what? I
Oh,
can do well. Because I say that to say, like, we had, by sharing that information, by telling the right people and telling a lot of people, we got all the information we need. So
yeah.
I don't do this because of love. And I've been thinking about it. Actually, I don't know that I was 100% in love with my husband the day we got married. I don't think so. I
And
think,
I don't think a lot, I mean, I don't say I don't think a lot of people are, but I think that it grows, right? Like
right,
that's what they say. Like it's
right,
supposed to grow over time.
right.
If that's what your journey is, and that's what your journey is,
Right. And
that's
because obviously we didn't start,
yeah,
we started quote unquote fast.
yeah,
Um, I don't think it's, and I tell him all the time because he's always, I love you. I'm like, dude, you do not love me. Like, and in fact, there is no way to even maybe show that you love me without even some of the practical things that we're going through now, married, right? The sacrifices one has to make for one thing or the other, and the decisions
yeah,
to make for one thing or the other. So again, do it whole, do
yeah,
it very conscious, right? But do it with
yeah.
asking oh my God,
The hard questions are important. Yeah,
all the questions. If you're 25, I would never maybe support you doing it in this way. I'll be honest with
yeah,
you. Take your time, date in different environment and all of that. But he also had been divorced. He knew what he wanted.
yeah.
He'd been through enough to know where to go, how to lead, and as well as how to like let me lead, for lack of a better term, and things
So
like that. So yeah, yeah.
yeah, so I have a question. That's someone I'm sure some of my audience know, maybe they don't, but I'm also someone that recently got engaged
Mm,
myself. And I remember we talked about dating in the episode of your podcast I was on. And I think about just kind of the process of when you're getting to know someone, right? Everyone kind of comes in with their baggage. Like,
mhm,
I had my baggage. I
mhm,
know my fiance had his baggage. Like once you've been in like multiple long-term relationships, you're coming
mhm,
in with like those experiences, right?
yeah,
So for you as someone that, is married to a person that was previously married, did you feel any kind of anxiety or like a feeling of like, is he comparing me to his ex? Like, were those things that came up for you, and were you able to articulate that to him?
yeah. I still feel that way. I don't think that
That's honest. That's honest.
I'll be very honest with you because, again, especially my husband, like if you know my husband, you know my husband is a lover boy. I mean, he's been retired for more years than we've been together.
Yeah. I completely understand.
Practically, let's be honest, like,
Yeah.
there's going to be that. And so, like I said, even sometimes when he's trying to say, I'm like, see, don't worry about it. I'm a big girl. I'm a big girl. And even on the days that I'm, quote unquote, unhappy about it, I just
Yeah.
have to be practical about it.
Like you guys, like you're with him now. So you just,
Exactly.
this is the present, right? Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I trust in the fact that my husband is a lover boy so much that I know that he's not going back to his ex. He's a very and I think maybe that's also part of the thing. He's always been a very I will die there.
Yeah.
The person has to leave him. It can never be the other way around kind of thing. I remember even saying it one time to his aunt, and I was like, oh, because all the other people he's been with have looked a certain kind of way. She's like,
Mm,
what do you mean? Like that, that person was even the odd one out. Like everybody else,
interesting.
you actually like.
Yeah.
So interestingly enough, I don't think that's going to go away. And particularly because for me, I wasn't in a lot of relationships before with my husband. In fact, first of all, gone 10 years to be like,
Yeah.
I don't want to do this. And then, now starting to figure it out. But I knew that I hadn't ever been in love in that way. Like even close enough to say that I want to marry this person. Right? Never been. I think one relationship where I thought, oh, this could have been serious.
Yeah.
And this was again when I was 20 something, right?
Yeah.
So I think for me it was easy. And it's easier for him. He doesn't really have to think about it that way. As far as baggage comes.
Yeah.
And I think there's also, regardless, we're human beings, we all come with our own thing.
Lessons, whatever, however
Exactly.
you want to term. Yeah.
Personalities as well.
Yeah.
Things that we are dealing with, even of our own self, that nobody has ever done to us. If we're being very honest, a lot of things that happen to us, it's us. It's
Yeah.
not family involved. It's
Yeah.
just us, how we look at life, how we do all of that stuff. So I think for me, I want to say that I'm not giving it too much grief.
Yeah, no, it's interesting. I completely understand because even like my fiance also was in a relationship with someone for a very long time. But that's something that like, it sometimes it creeps up. I'm like, okay. But then you're just like, you know what? Like ultimately
Yeah,
it's part of who he is and part of what he's bringing into this relationship. So it's
I think
yeah,
trust. You have to trust that they didn't make. I mean, I didn't force him to make the decision. I didn't ask
that's
him.
yeah.
I didn't ask him.
Yeah, like like he's an autonomous human being and he chose to make a decision and you just have to trust him. That's
I didn't
true.
I didn't hint, I didn't give you any. I'm like,
Mhm.
I was doing my own thing. You came to me, so
Yeah.
I like to think that you know what you're doing.
Yeah. And you mentioned obviously your whirlwind romance, and you said you would only recommend it to maybe older. I don't even like to use that word, but you said
But
38.
it is
But
it.
it is what it is, right? Like,
Yeah.
so I wonder for women who may feel pressure around like timelines for love and marriage, because you said you were 38 when you got married?
Yeah.
Okay, so I guess what wisdom would you share? And I'm even talking specifically kind of in the Nigerian context, because I
Yeah.
think it's a lot heavier in our
Yeah.
context.
It's funny because so like I said, obviously I prayed about it, but I always struggled with this whole idea of praying about it.
Mm.
Put up a picture because everybody's like, oh, marriage looks so good on you, and marriage makes you glow, and and I'm in my head, I'm like, I've been looking good for a while.
She
So
said, I've been looking good, okay?
I put up something on Instagram today, and there's one of those 6 years
Yeah, I
evolution.
was actually going to copy that. Yeah.
Yeah, and I saw 2020 to 2025, and I'm like, yes, I did look good. It was not just fall.
Yeah.
You're gonna see, the thing is, at the end of the day, a lot of people want to blame pressure on parents and this and that, except they live with you, except you're living with them. You really can't ignore.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true.
Let's be very, very honest. You can ignore. I remember back then, my cousin and I would always laugh. My cousin would say the next time that they would, and this was, early 30s. And she was like, the next time somebody would ask her that, she would be like, okay, so when are you going to die? Because since that's the next evolution for you. Like, and I see all of this. See, I know it's not, part of it is, like I said, our own self, like our
Right.
own,
Like your own internal pressure.
exactly, your own
Yeah.
internal pressure. And that's harder to deal with than a person
Yeah. Yeah.
and the external pressure. So I get that. But what I will tell you that is that you are not going to think personally, be successful in marriage anyways if you're not your own person. And if you're not standing well, and if you're not standing strong, and not just mentally, maybe not just physically, but mentally, because look at what we just talked about now. Let's assume you go into a relationship with somebody who's divorced. Every time he picks up his phone, I don't know my husband's password. He's always so annoyed because he knows my password.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I'm not looking at your phone.
Because you're constantly going to be like, oh, who is he texting? Who is he calling? Like,
You'll be
yeah.
worried about everything. You'll
Yeah.
be checking everything. And that's just one way of of going through this thing. So what happens when you don't have babies immediately? And then is it because you did this? Because
Yeah.
I don't, you're going to
Yeah.
start putting again other pressures onto yourself. So I encourage you to find something you love. Find something you're passionate about. If you can't find something you love, find something you're not, just do something. Like be practically doing something with your hands, right?
Yeah.
And social media is good, but if you need to get off of social media, get off of social
Do
media and
that.
do something with your hands,
Exactly.
with your brain, with your body. Well, no, I mean, don't go.
Don't open an OnlyFans, guys. That's not what
But
she's
I'm saying,
saying.
like, yes, but I go like the gym, like, that kind of thing. And I think
Yeah.
that if you do that and then align yourself with God, see, I knew that
Mhm.
at the time I was going to get married, it was going to be easy. I think, like you said, I said in my podcast or on our episode together,
You said it.
I had that confidence that God had a plan for me, and God had a plan for me where it was going to be easy. I'm a baby girl in my mother-in-law's hand. I'm a baby girl in the Roberts family. Baby girl. I'm not
I
even
love
joking.
that.
I did not even want to cook in my own house. I would not cook. That kind of thing. Like, so
Mhm.
I see all of that to say that, because again, it's not about just him. It's the family.
Your family. Yeah.
It's not just this person. It's a whole family and community are going to be built together. So if you're not yourself, if you're not mentally strong, and then if you don't know what God already has said about you, see, it's only if you're struggling with what God has said about you, I think that you even start to struggle about this thing. Because if you
Yeah.
know, and I'm not even trying to say that because I'm an expert at God. Me and God, we have our thing. It works for us, but it does. This is the first time in my life I'm not worried about work, and I'm not worried about where the next job is going to come from, or, I'm remote. And so will I find another thing, once this job, and because I know where God is taking me. And so I think, yeah, know where God is taking you, do
I love that.
something practically,
Yeah.
enjoy yourself, travel, have friendships. I mean, this seems so very, very vague, and I've seen it work. I've seen it work in everybody else's life that is experiencing the same thing, that quote unquote waited long.
Mhm.
And they're doing well. I promise you, they're doing well. They're living
Yeah.
their life, and you
Yeah.
can.
Yeah. And, I saw something, there's a quote I saw, it says, God is working and you're waiting. So
Yeah.
I think just that's something to just keep in mind for whatever people are waiting for. It might not be love
Yeah.
and marriage. It could be a
Yeah.
new job. It could be
Yeah.
a new opportunity, whatever it is.
Yeah.
I think that's
Yeah.
that's important wisdom. So yeah, let's shift a little bit to kind of health, maybe personal health, because this is something that you and I also have in common. I'm realizing we have so much in common. It's crazy. Anyways, it's uterine fibroids. That's something that a lot of women silently struggle with, especially Black women. It's something like I remember I had my surgery last year, early last year. And it was a very interesting, or like it was a, I don't even know, for me it wasn't a shocking discovery. I don't know why. I just was like, this is something a lot of Black women get. I'll probably get it at some point.
Yeah.
We'll see how it goes. So when I heard about it, when I heard that I had it, I was just like, okay, here we go. Great. So, can you share your own experience kind of navigating your diagnosis, and, how was that for you in terms of just emotionally, physically, spiritually?
Yeah. I don't remember the time this thing started. I want to say 2016. I want to say 2016. I remember. But it's so funny because I didn't, by the time I finally found out, so it started with me just complaining that my tummy was getting big. It's
Mm.
funny because the tummy was not big. Now that I think about it, and now that I look at like this, well, my siblings are all very skinny. My mom is very skinny. So
And it's easier to notice it when you're a certain
exactly,
size. Yeah, because I'm like I'm a thicker girl, so I
yeah.
didn't really notice that my belly was getting bigger.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Doing all of the working out and doing this and doing that. You're like, why are you still so bloated? Now,
Yeah.
I've never had period issues. My period has never been what's the word? I want to say my period has never also been late like that.
Yeah.
It has a rhythm. This week it's this few months it's been coming a day before, then for the next few months it's coming a day before. Or it's some day like I'm at 25, 26 days, it's this thing. I'm 3
It
days.
was standard, yeah. Regulated. Yeah. Yeah.
So I wasn't having those issues, and in public health, so I was always regular with my wellness exams.
Yeah.
Nobody's saying anything. And then one day, I think, and I want to say it's 2018. One day, 2018, the guy goes, "Oh, I have fibroids." I'm like, "What do you mean? What are you talking about? Like, my tummy's just big." He's like, You feel that?"
Yeah.
I'm like, "Okay, fine. Sure, let me go take this test." They do the test, and I tell people, if you don't want to do anything about it, it's okay. Don't do anything about it,
Yeah.
because that test, it's when they're,
The
searching.
thing is it with the cervix where
Yeah,
yeah.
it moved things around. This is my personal story, and I'm sticking to it. It
Nothing
moved
move
things
things
around
around. Okay.
so much so that the next thing is I'm constipated all the time. And I was like, in God's name, when this thing was there and it was just chilling, I did not know. I just had no
Did
issue.
you have it in your uterus or outside your uterus?
Everything was outside my uterus, but one was on top of my bladder and the other was on top of my urethra. So they took out 18 eventually, by the way.
Wow, you had 18.
Yes.
Oh
we'll
my
go back.
God.
We'll go back to that. So this was 2018.
Okay.
And I think 2022. At this point, I'm like, you know what, screw this. I'm over it. And I think I think I started like 2021 trying to figure out what was happening. But honestly, yeah, and being very, very honest, I think for me it was just vanity. I just did not like my tummy baby. I did not like
Because they tell you that they don't really have like they don't do anything aside from like
right.
maybe when you're trying to have a child, then that's an
Exactly.
issue. Tell you like leave it alone until you're trying to have a kid.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so of course at this point I'm single and I'm like, fine, we'll leave this. But
Mhm.
at 2022, I'm like, girl, you're not living your life for no man and you're not waiting for no man. And this is stopping you. And I just didn't like constipation. Oh God, I hate constipation. I just think it's the worst thing in the world. So I'm like, I'm not doing this. I'm not waiting for no man because the idea is, and that's what, at least that's what they suggest is you do it. And then 1 year after you're able to kind of have a baby immediately because it does grow back. It does. And then nobody tell you it doesn't grow back. Or whatever. So the first hospital, as I registered, was going to do this. And
were you doing is it in Nigeria or were you doing that in the US?
I actually did. I actually searched both places because, like I said, in 2020, I was starting to go in and out of Nigeria anyways for the man, mostly because of work as well. I searched both places. Nigeria was not answering me on time. I didn't have time for all of that. So then I started looking America, and I mean I had my citizenship and stuff, and my insurance was fine, so why not? And so the first place I'd gone to, I'm registered now, all of that. But you know, I could just tell that the person, I was just a number to this person. Like I'd done, like, I don't know, millions of this. And so I was just a number. And so the next thing I see, on the form that they send you, and they're like, oh, ovary removal surgery.
Oh wow. Okay.
Talking about like, are you guys all right? Like, so I reached out twice and they didn't change it. And I'm like, you know what? Maybe this is a sign.
Yeah, this is not for me. This is for trying to do something else.
God is telling me not to do it. I let it go. And then shortly after again, I'm like, okay, you know what? Let me just do this. I reached out to, at this point, my friend had just had her own surgery. And she, for example, I think she didn't even know until hers had become not cancerous, but they call it something. It's when not cancerous, but it's like when the blood has been basically the blood vessel is now cut off, so it starts to rot, for lack of a better term.
Oh,
so you
I
know
see.
how like people have like what's that thing called, appendix, and when it's whatever that thing is, and it's now about to burst.
Yeah.
So she had an emergency surgery. So she's like, oh, okay. So she tells me the name of that doctor. And she tells me her doctor is very fantastic. And she really was fantastic. I recommend Dr. Klobus' sister every time because she took her time, drew it out for me, explained it for me. I mean, she made me do multiple tests, but still, she did everything to kind of make me understand what my options were.
Yeah.
And all of that. But at the time, because I'd already had that much, my options were very limited. I had to do the surgery and all of that. And so I do the surgery. And in fact, it's funny because I'd done it on the same day as my best friend. So it was supposed to be an easy surgery. She was here in Texas. I was in Jersey. I didn't even want to announce it to people. I didn't really tell a lot of people. Normal surgery.
Yeah.
And that it was not a normal surgery because I come out of the surgery and, oh, this was a perfect surgery. You know, we took out 18. You should be recovered. You're going to stand up and, you know, you have to pass gas. Then they're going to be able to release you. First day, I've not passed gas. Second day, I can barely pee. Okay, what's happening? We don't know. Okay, let's see. I think by the end of that night, I'd thrown up. All right. I'll do something. Do we go back in? I'm like, blood of Jesus, we're not going back anywhere. Like, I don't even understand what you're talking about. Like, why are we going back in?
Yeah.
What happened? We don't know. And then it was a weekend. And everywhere in the world, weekend, there's no hospital, there's no doctors. Sorry. You can't really get that main doctor and all of that stuff. But, you know, she's calling in, she's checking in and down, all of that stuff. So they have to put a tube. Now I'm doing all kinds of tests and all kinds of injections are going through me. Like they're putting injections.
You're still in the hospital at this point.
I'm still in the hospital.
Okay.
And so at some point they put a tube through my nose and it has to go through my tummy to get things out
Right.
and all of that stuff. Anyways, another 2 days later, and then they really did have to go back in and do another surgery. I'd had a
Oh, wow.
complication
Okay.
because I guess my intestines, they said we're trying to, I guess we're trying to heal really quickly. So they become adhesive. Is that the word?
Yeah, they had adhesions on them or whatever. Yeah.
Yeah. And so now my intestines are like locked together. And so now they have to kind of separate them and things like that.
Oh, wow.
And so my journey now then just became painful for lack of
Yeah. Because what was your recovery period?
usually you're out of there by a day, maybe the next day, as long as you what's it called? As long as you pass gas.
Yes, gas, yeah.
Yeah, and I'd peed a little, but I couldn't. And it's so funny because this sounds so disgusting, but when they finally when I finally come out of the second surgery, I couldn't stop.
It was like, you want to pee, huh? There you go. You're going to pee now.
So funny, but no, it was a lot. But I thank God that at the end of the day, and this is where sometimes we take things for granted, right?
Yeah.
So yes, fibroids is not normal, and please, because you were saying something about, you are like, I'm gonna get it.
No, because I think because I had like a number of cousins that had gotten it, and I knew that I was in my early 30s. I hadn't had a child, and it just was like, and I want to say this and that, not to like, because you're right, like we shouldn't normalize it, but I think that because, and maybe it's because the medical community has not really even tried to figure out how do we fix this problem. It's now like something that Black women just feel like we're just gonna have to figure out and deal with.
Right.
And sometimes that then makes it then feel like, I don't want to say it's a rite of passage because God forbid.
Right.
It's, it just becomes something that you're like, okay, my period is heavy. It's either like now it's like PCOS and fibroids.
Exactly.
So much of, yeah.
But I do want to encourage people to not, one, just assume you're going to get it. I do think, if you don't already drink coffee, don't drink coffee. Don't drink coffee. Just saying, these are some of the things they told me after the fact that, maybe I should drink the coffee intake. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not happening. If you can get on a birth control pill, I do hear that works. And there was something my sister had sent me. Oh God, I wish I could remember now, but it was something about some conversation that Furnace Williams had on ABC, and there was some kind of concussion thing or something. I don't want to say concussion, or something that people are saying are working. So find out, do as preventative as possible. But I also think that is going to happen to you. You know what I mean? I think that
like there's also I don't want to say it's a stigma, because I just think that Nigerian people have a weird thing with fibroids.
Yes,
like it's a conversation where like they don't even want to talk about it. It's like, she has fibroids. Oh, like, and I just feel like that's also part of the problem, is that nobody even talks about the fact that they had fibroids, because
I think it's also because it's linked, not really, but linked to pregnancy in that sense, in that people are afraid of it because of their chances of being pregnant. I don't think
that's what it is.
The medical community has lied to you, because a lot of pregnancy is truly maybe 70% related to the man. Sperm motility is sperm fertility, for lack of a better term. For lack of a better term, like I still listened to something today where, you have 8 weeks before you have mature sperm that is good enough for the woman. In that 8 weeks, how much smoking, drinking, a lot of sugar, and all of that. In fact, did you know that a lot of miscarriages are actually related to the guys?
Man sperm.
So, woman of God, I implore you to not stress yourself so much about what you carry. You're the carrier.
It's a combined effort.
Exactly. So that's one. But two, I know someone who's not had fibroids. I know people who don't have fibroids that
I know people that have had fibroids and have had kids. Many kids.
So God is the giver of life. I think that's just one thing to remember. I think, there's also other ways to have children. There's all kinds of things. So I think it's just lack of knowledge, right? It's just lack of what's it called, understanding. Like, it's funny now because I'm in this age where I'm like, you don't even have far from this whole time, and the next thing you're thinking about is menopause. Like, and I was listening to people talk about perimenopause and having that at 30 something.
People are having that at like 35. Look, women, we're dealing with a lot. Okay, women, we're dealing with a lot.
So I say all of that to say that, I think obviously be as healthy as possible,
Right.
try to reduce drinking. I mean, it is what it is, but
Yeah.
beginning to see more and more that there's no amount of alcohol that is good for your system. Right? I'm
Yeah.
not saying drink, but I mean,
Everything is moderation.
everything in
Right. Yeah.
moderation, right? So I think that's just
Yeah.
important to remember. Like I said, the birth control pill, but read up. Anything that they say works and you're comfortable with. I mean, I'm not giving up coffee. Like, I'm waiting for my children to make me now be like, I hate coffee. Like, I'm just praying I'll be pregnant and be like, I don't like coffee again.
So like that would be your thing, and then you lose it. Yeah.
Yeah, and I'll be like,
The coffee
yes,
thing. Yeah.
I've gotten rid of the addiction, the only thing that I'm addicted to, that kind of thing. Work with your spouse to be healthy as well, because like I said, it's not
Yeah.
just you. But see, we need to stop living our lives like we control it. We don't.
Yeah.
We have our own hearts. And I always like to say this: there's human will, and human responsibility, and then there's God's will. So yes, we want to work in God's alignment with God, and we want to do our own part. But your part
Mhm.
is, be healthy,
Be
work
healthy.
out, eat right,
Yeah.
those kind of things. Pray, ask.
Yeah. And
But
I think it's
anything,
also important just on the health side is that
yeah,
women of a certain age, make sure you're getting your annual checks, make sure you're
yes, please,
your pap smears, all of those
please,
things are extremely important. If you have
please,
access to healthcare, I think
yes.
that's something that, we definitely need to advocate for that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If you have access to healthcare and you want to keep your eggs,
Yeah.
if that's something that's really important to you. I think for me, it's one of those things where I'm like I said, I didn't wait because I'm like, I'm not waiting for no man. I don't know when the man is gonna come. But I'm
Right.
also like, God, you either do this or we're all right. We'll be fine. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Like, I can't, again, control everything.
Fourth floor, as they like to say.
Who are our age, or I mean, older or whatever, and you're just worried about all of the implications. See, just go on Instagram and Google 40 plus happy babies. They're
There's so many.
hundreds.
There's so many. Yeah.
Yeah. So like
Yeah.
I just open it to just make myself happy, to just be like,
There's hope. There's
this
hope.
can be
Yeah.
God's will.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. So yeah. So I
Okay.
don't want you to think that, I made that decision when I was 30 and now this, nah, don't be
Yeah.
all right. Yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
And so just kind of going back to, I mean, you started this podcast saying you're a child of God. So
Yes.
faith and identity is obviously a big part of your life. And I think, can you just maybe talk a little bit about how you are grounding, how Christianity, how your Christian faith has really grounded you in your personal and maybe even your professional journey? And then also maybe the second piece is, because you've kind of touched on this as well, is like balancing your ambition with surrendering to God's timing. How have you done those?
I think for me, practically, like I always said, my relationship with God is special. It's not actually that bad. But what it is for me is, I'm not necessarily the kind of person who will tell you that I heard God and God said that this was the
Yeah.
particular job that I should take.
Yeah.
But I have seen God's hand in said job. So if I take a job, if I make that decision and I take a job,
Right.
and I remember, and I always tell people this, my pastor, I had two opportunities. One was 120,000, one was 170,000. He's like, what's the question? What's the actual question? And I think sometimes we really it's okay to be that practical. And I don't think that, God loves you less because of that. And, how does God talk to you? I was thinking about it today, but around this whole issue of like names and changing your names, right?
Yeah.
Obviously, I haven't changed my name. I mean, I'll use Dr. Roberts, but I haven't changed my name.
Like
But one day,
officially change your name. Yeah.
yes. But one day, right before this whole Otadala thing that came out, and everybody's like, oh my gosh, she's changed her name. I'm in the shower and I'm like thinking about it. And I come out of the shower and my husband goes, oh, I think I should look into how you can change your name. And I'm like, in my head? First of all, we talked about this. We weren't changing names. So the fact that he even said it like that,
Yeah.
I'm already interested. But
That's
I'm
funny.
just saying, like, I feel like that was God being like, okay, there's alignment. So understanding how God talks to me is also
Yeah.
is also very important. But I see all of that to say that not everything is fair and cut and all of that. I think the most important thing is we make the right choices guided by what we for sure. And what do we know for sure? It's in the scriptures. I might not pray every day, and I don't necessarily read the Bible every day, but I will catch up on my Bible. I will make sure I read the Bible. I make sure that I read the Bible through every year. I think this forward. And I just think there's some things that are clear, and it gives you a, what's it called? It gives you a framing of your heart or your mind and your, what's it called? So now we're in a situation where, somebody's been killed.
Yeah.
Everybody has all this full just think about it. And let me be very honest with you. I'm like, I'm not sure I want to pray for his soul. I'm sorry, that's between him and God.
Like, that's literally between him and God. Like,
Yes,
it's not,
literally.
it's obviously nobody deserves to die in such a violent way, but it's not, I'm personally not going to be putting up elegies,
Exactly.
so
And
yeah.
now the question is, you as a Christian, why would you do that? And I always like to think that, what's the framework? And the framework is, what has God called us to be? One, he's called us to be kind, to be tenderhearted, to love one another and all of that. This person, and I'm using that as an example to say, this person didn't exactly show that.
That, in at least in their public life that we saw. We don't know what they were
Exactly.
doing in their private.
He says that, but we know that with God says that we exhibit the fruit of the Spirit.
Right.
And what are those, right? So again, what I'm trying to explain is that it is very important that we exhibit the fruit of the Spirit, as God will enable us in our actions, in our behavior, in our speech, and all of that. Things that we know that we know that we know. Oh, I'm not a Christian who's now carrying placard and saying, I'm anti-abortion. I'll be very honest with you. I am anti-abortion scripturally, right? For example, I will also tell you that I'm a medical allied person who knows that there are practical reasons.
Yeah, for having one.
If I was 16 and I was having sex, which is why I don't recommend having sex at 16, and I got pregnant, I had an abortion.
Yeah.
Body in their right mind could have told me that I couldn't. That's one. But two, guess what? Having an abortion doesn't take you away from heaven. It would never take you away from heaven. In fact, the person at the cross, besides Jesus, I'm pretty sure they said was a murderer and he entered heaven. So having a complete framework of who God is, it's not just ideology, I think has been very, very helpful for me, and has been what has kind of guided me. Long story short, what have I been doing as far as my ambition? That is still a struggle. I'll be very honest.
Yeah.
Oh, this was the first time in my life I told my husband. So normally I had been very lucky. Every time I would get a flight, I typically would just get an economy because I know that I'll get bumped up. This time I didn't get bumped up. I told my husband, I said, this is the last time I'm doing economy. And I say that to say that I'm usually the kind of person who thinks, oh, as a child of God, I don't have to have, as a child of God, I don't have to have, this kind of wealth that I want to flaunt everywhere. And like, only, well, must I take business class? Like, it would just be economy, comfort, comfort class. This is usually
premium economy.
Yeah, premium economy, which is usually what I do. But I was like, this was the first time I'm like, no, I don't want that. And I think it's okay that as a child of God, I don't want less. And I'm not saying that the people that are in economy are less. So, and that's sometimes where there's the
of like what you want versus just saying, let's see how it goes.
Exactly. Okay, but are the people in the economy, are they not children of God? Do they not deserve to be in business class? But the truth of the matter is, it's called business class for a reason. Not everybody can be there. It's just.
Yeah, I mean, it's according to your pockets.
It's according to your pocket.
Yeah.
And I'm like, God, you know what? I want my pockets to be bigger. But one thing I will say is I've also always, and I always tell God, I said, see, a lot of the things I want to do is for others as well. So I think that's how I try to keep that ambition in check, because I want a lot and I want to do a lot, but I also want to make sure that everything I'm doing is loving God and loving people. And I think that's what I try to live by. And I think if I can try and make sure that I stay humble that way, I stay grounded that way, that as I push myself for more, and as I push in asking God for more, and God, I'm saying I'm a vessel and I'm a good carrier of that thing that you give me. I'm going to pass it on to others, and it's not just going to be for me. So
love that. I love it. Okay. So I think maybe my close, we're rounding up. I think maybe my last-ish question is, you've talked about, your different roles, right? You've talked about you're an eldest daughter, so you're a sister, your daughter, wife now, a friend. How are you kind of taking care of yourself mentally, physically, spiritually, while you're juggling all these different parts of who you are?
A very deep question. And I say this because everybody asks me how I take care of myself, and I don't know that I take.
You mentioned traveling, so maybe that's one way.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. But I don't know, because like, for example, on this trip, I came for work, but I'm spending half of the time traveling to see other people. So I do my nails. and I do my
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
how I do myself. And I
Okay.
know that sounds very, very lame, and people want you to like be in spas and do all of that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
I'm just not my own person, and I don't know why people find that difficult and say I'm not my own person.
Really?
Connected, yes, I'm connected to my family, I'm connected to my friends, I'm connected to my
And so
husband.
they own certain aspects of things. What you're saying.
Yeah. So I
Okay.
think for me, the thing that, the way I like to think about it is I'm not suffering. And when I'm making those choices, I'm not
Mm-hmm.
choosing people over myself. I'm
Mm-hmm.
choosing people and myself. Like I enjoy
I
being, so
see.
for example,
I
now I
see.
want to go and see my friends.
Yeah.
I enjoy seeing them. I enjoy talking to them. I enjoy seeing their babies. And so
Mm,
to be with them or to see them or to spend time with them or to travel to see them, it's not a sacrifice
yeah.
thing for me. So yeah, maybe my nails, maybe my hair. And then my one thing my sister does say, because she always we talk about this a lot. And it's
Yeah.
funny, like a lot of people ask me this question, is if there's five of us in the house and I want to watch a show, I don't care who else is in the house. I'm gonna pick up the TV and watch what I want to watch, right?
Okay, she said elder. That's eldest daughter syndrome right there.
I think so. I think that's another way. I think so, see, guys, self-care is good. If
Yeah.
it's something you enjoy, I don't enjoy massages. I do it with my husband now. We've done like 3 times, and I think it's gonna be our thing. But it's
Hmm.
not our thing because I particularly enjoy it. I'm just
It's like let's find something we're doing together.
yeah, exactly,
Hmm.
exactly,
Hmm.
right. I think self-care is good for the people who enjoy it. I think, if it makes you feel good, then
Hmm.
do it. But I feel like that what makes me feel good is being surrounded by the people that
By people, and maybe that's
yes.
your self care, and that's
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Like people and hearing stories and being around family and friends is
Yeah.
what energizes you, and I think
Yeah.
that's okay too. Yeah, so that's great. Okay, we're on our last question, and I ask every guest this: if
Yes.
your life had a theme song right now, what would it be and why?
Oh, I'm still in my Lover Girl space, I guess. This
Wait, who
song by
sings that?
Fowls, I
Oh,
love it.
House. Okay.
Yeah, Family. So I think I'm in my Lover Girl phase now. And let me end this with this. Marry a fine guy. See, guys, I'm on the plane. My husband is not by me. I'm watching this movie and I'm choosing. I think if my husband had seen me, he would have upload me really, really quick, because I'm watching this movie and this guy is so cute. Oh my gosh. And I just kept thinking, thank God I have a fine guy at home. So I'm
Thank
not
God my
over here
husband's.
comparing.
It's fine.
Not over here comparing. Like, can you imagine the person that I left in the house? It's not as fine as this one. So
You're
marry a
so
fine guy. But
silly.
yes,
Oh my
I
goodness.
think that if my life well, wait, what's the question was if my
The
life
theme song. Yeah, like no, like
of my
right
entire
now,
life.
this
Oh,
moment.
okay,
What
right
is the
now,
theme?
right
Yeah.
now. Okay, yes. So, like I said, I'm still in my lover girl phase. I'm so looking forward to our first year anniversary. I
Oh,
feel like we should have a party.
should.
I'm not doing it, but I feel like I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking
Okay.
forward to having
Well,
that chance.
I mean, hey, 1 year, I think I pray that you stay in your lover girl phase for a long time. You both do. And I just want to say thanks for being on the show. I really enjoyed the
Thank you.
conversation. It's always fun chatting with you anyway. So I enjoy the conversation. Thanks for all the wisdom that you've shared with our guests. And yeah, you are fantastic. Obviously, you know that. So
Thank you
thanks so
so
much for being here. Any
much.
last words before we close out?
I can always talk. Let me say this. It's important to be yourself, I think. I just want to remind people, be yourself. I'm on the plane, heading towards the plane the other day, and I have my headphones in and I'm dancing my life away. And it was just like, I'm sure everybody was thinking I'm a mad person, but it made me happy to know that I was not self-conscious in that
Mm,
sense. And I
yeah.
could be myself and nobody would know that this girl had a PhD and was doing something good with her life. And I think for me, that's the feeling that I want us,
Yeah.
maybe other people, to have each and every day. Maybe not every
Yeah.
day, life is life, but as often as possible
As
that
much
you
as you can.
can look back on the day before, the day, and just kind of have that smile because you're living yourself. So really
Yeah.
try. It's not easy, but I think that each and every day make a decision that moves you closer to being yourself. So
Love that. And with that, we're going to end the episode. Thanks so much, guys, for listening to this episode, and we'll catch you on the next one. Take care.
thank you.